Very good afternoon. Sentiment among South African businesses remains fragile. The SACCI Business Confidence Index dipped slightly by 0.1 index points in September from 85.8 to 85.7. SACCI says COVID-19 and the lockdown process has had worse consequences for the business climate than the global recession of 2007 and 8. The worst negative effects came from depressed retail sales volumes, lower share prices on the JSE, and less real credit to the private sector. Positive contributions came from improved merchandise export and import volumes and manufacturing output. SACCI says the accommodative financial environment helped to ease some of the difficulties experienced in business. It says while it seems management of the pandemic by government has been successful, the economy has been hard hit given rising unemployment, business closures and the GDP decline. SACCI says the recent high-profile public arrest for corruption will go some way to restore local and foreign investor confidence. Let's get some more on that story. Richard Downing from SACCI joins me. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. So was that marginal decline in September? Take us through more of what led to that.
Well, I think what we see is in terms of, especially year on year, that the economy is still in a very difficult position at the moment. Since March, the index actually declined by 19.8 index points, and it now clawed back some 15.7 index points. So the index, the little sideways movement actually that we saw in September from August is actually an indication that how difficult it will be to regain sort of the rhythm and the dynamics in the economy caused by the process following on the COVID pandemic. So it's not just an automatic process as such, because a lot of the damage is actually the linkages in the economy and to the international global economy. And all those linkages are playing into this situation where the business confidence situation is not yet where we would like it to be, and it affected actually government, the households and business alike.
All right, Richard, so SACCI has described government's intervention in terms of COVID-19 as relatively successful in terms of managing health. You've just spoken about the impact on the economy. You've suggested structural changes to try and deal with this problem.
Yeah, I mean, the health problem is one sort of dimension of the whole pandemic. I mean, the other one is how you actually manage the economy in this dual type of risk situation. And one doesn't want to create another sort of pandemic in terms of the economy or endemics as such by actually to be too restrictive on the economy and dampen economic activity. And I think to a large extent, perhaps, South Africa was seen to be very strict, in terms of these regulatory environment they created in terms of the command center, and I think that has been a problem to some extent for the economy. So it makes it more difficult. And we've indicated actually in terms of certain countries we have this type of big sort of regulatory environment, like also Britain, for instance, where those economies actually dipped quite a lot in the second quarter. We have a lot of sort of information at the moment. And from there on, it's very difficult actually to get the economies going. And so it all it's not only depending about unlocking the economy, it's also about putting things in place and sequencing how you do it. And I think at the moment what comes first is the fact that you have to sort of try to salvage what of the economy, and then from there on try to address your fiscal sort of problems that you're experiencing, which is very daunting to some extent. And then, of course, you're going to go on with structural development to create a more growth and employment conducive environment driven actually by the private sector and enhanced by government.
Okay, let's talk about unemployment. We've seen those statistics South Africa figures saying that 2.2 million people at least lost their jobs. Best case estimates say that South Africa's economy will contract by at least 8%. And in that context, COSATU is striking over some of the things you've mentioned: the economy, lack of adequate PPE for healthcare workers, as well as corruption. Give us your reaction to that.
Well, I think we've got a lot of problems. It's not only those issues. It's not only one of the social partners that's actually suffering quite a lot from what we see at the moment. I mean, and there's some aspects or some dimensions of and partners in this whole process that didn't suffer anything actually in terms of keeping their jobs, keeping their salaries, and still claiming sort of raises in remuneration and that type of thing, which is very difficult at the moment. And I think the Minister of Finance has painted that picture over and over again. But I think, we must come together and realize what is the situation in South Africa in terms of the economy that's not performing, that finds it very difficult to adhere to all sort of demands and sort of niceties in terms of what we would like to have. And first try and salvage the basic issues in the economy, and from there on try to build a more stronger base for the economy to grow and create jobs in the end. And with that, and those type of things will of course create a better environment also even for your unions in terms of membership and all that. And really to adhere to issues that applies to labor and fair labor practices and that type of thing. I think that's very important at the moment to get us all to sing from the same hymn sheet as such.
Richard Downing from SACCI, thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. It's